Hi guys, welcome to our next unit of notes, 3B. We're going to be talking about triangle congruency now, and trying to decide if two triangles are congruent based on different information that they give us. The first one we're going to talk about is what's called side-side-side congruence. This is going to be if all three sides of one triangle are congruent to the corresponding, or what I've talked about in my class is corresponding matching sides of a second triangle. So we have if all three sides are congruent, then we have a side-side-side congruency. So if we take a look at what we're talking about over here in the example, we're seeing here that a segment AB, so segment AB right here, is congruent to segment DE right here. Okay, you see how we've got the corresponding sides are congruent. And then segment BC over here has two tick marks. It's congruent to segment EF right here. So these two sides are congruent with two tick marks. And then side AC, we have these three tick marks, is going to be congruent to side DF. We see that it has three congruent tick marks as well. So each corresponding side is congruent. So therefore, we have triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF by that side-side-side congruence. All three corresponding sides of each triangle are congruent. Therefore, we do have congruent triangles. This is just a set rule here. So we'll look at this first example and take a look and say, okay, are they congruent or are they not? So what we're going to see in this first example here is I have a tick mark here, a single tick mark at segment YZ, and I have one right here at BC. So we have a side that's congruent. Then we take a look, I've got two tick marks at AB, and I have two tick marks at XY. So we see that we have two sides that are congruent. Then lastly, we see these three tick marks right here at segment AC and three tick marks at segment XZ. So because we have three different, it's exactly like the example up here. So since we have all of this together, yep, we got three corresponding sides that are congruent. We do have congruent triangles. Now, sometimes we don't have the tick marks, so we need to take a look at the numbers. So it's not that difficult whenever we have the numbers. It's like whenever we're looking at where the smallest angle or the longest side are, the biggest across the biggest, smallest across the smallest. I taught you guys in my lessons that we look for the small, medium, and large numbers. Here we just look and see if we have matching numbers. So here I see a 2 foot and a 2 foot side. So we have one side that is going to be congruent. Then I see a 3 foot and a 3 foot. So I have two sides that are congruent. But if you take a look at the third side, we have a 4 foot and then we have a 6 foot. Clearly, these are not congruent. So we only have two sides that are congruent, and that is it. So we cannot determine that these are congruent. So we would say, no, these are not, we cannot say these are congruent. The last one here, again, we'll take, okay, I see a 5 right here, and I see a 5 right here, so we got one match. I'm seeing a 7 here and a 7 here, so we have two sides that are congruent. So far, so good. Then we take a look at our last side, and we have a 9 and a 9. So again, we don't have the tick marks, but we have number values. But we see that our 5s match, our 7s match, and our 9s match. It doesn't matter whether it's the top, bottom, left, right. Okay? It just matters that they have a match, and each side of triangle ABC has a match over here. So we do have congruent triangles. Our next example, we're going to take a look at what's going on here. Okay? We are seeing here that segment AC is congruent to segment AD. So we're going to go AC right here, and we're going to mark this congruent to segment AD right here. So these two are going to be congruent. So what I like to do is I like to mark little S's, and you'll see in the next one why I say A's, but S's and A's. So here I have a side congruent. I usually only mark them on one. Okay, you'll see later, sometimes I do mark them on two on both triangles, but here I'm going to mark it on one. I've got a side. Next, I'm seeing that segment CB is congruent to segment BD. So I'm going to do CB right here, remembering to put two tick marks, because the second pair of sides that are congruent. It's going to be congruent to segment BD right here. So these two are going to be congruent. So I have another side. And then we're saying if these are two congruent, then are these two triangles, triangle ACB, is it congruent to triangle ADB? And we'll talk about the order of the letters and how to name the congruency statement right here a little bit later. but we want to know, are they congruent? Well, right now we only have two sides. But what I need you guys to see that's very, very important here, that they're not going to give you, that you're going to have to see on your own, is this segment right here. Segment AB is shared between both triangles. We actually call this, this is going to be your reflective property. We don't talk about the reflexive property in academic geometry this year, but what we call this is the two triangles have a shared side. When the two triangles have a shared side, it's automatically going to be congruent because they're the exact same length. Now, if one was longer than the other, if this one went out to here, it'd be different. But it starts at A, ends at B, and they're both the exact same length. So here we have what's called segment AB is congruent to segment AB. Sorry, it's not symmetric. It's a reflexive property. So, again, that's not important for academic geometry this year. So what I want you guys to note on here, put a little asterisk or a star or something. What you have to do when you're looking through these is that they're not going to give you this, what I call the shared side. You have to make sure that you look for shared side. So we're going to write that down in our notes. You have to look for shared sides. This is very, very important because if you don't notice it, and that's actually, in this case, what makes these two triangles congruent, we now have a side, and another side marked congruent. We actually do have congruent triangles, so we can say to the answer to the question, yes. And how is it? We're going to go ahead and answer, how do we know? It's by the side, SSS, and then we'll just put a congruent symbol. So side, congruency. So you have to be able to read these congruency statements, figure out what's congruent, but you're also going to have to keep an eye out for those shared sides. Okay? Next on the list, that is your side, all three sides. In my opinion, that's pretty much the easiest one to see there. Let's take a look at what is called an included angle. An included angle, so this is where I said A's, S's and A's. This is going to be the angle that is formed by two adjacent sides. It's going to be the angle between two congruent sides. So here, if we take a look at the picture we have that angle B is the included angle between segment AB, right here, and segment BC. So this is your included angle. It is between two sides. It is the angle formed by the two sides. Okay? So this is where we come up with this side angle, side congruence. So you're going to need a side, the included angle, and the next side, all congruent to follow the side angle side. So here, if two sides and the included angle are congruent, then we have congruent triangles. So looking at this, we have segment AB is congruent to segment DE. We have angle B is congruent to angle E. So here angle B is congruent to angle E. And then segment BC right here as marked, two tick marks, is congruent to segment EF. So this is going to give us our SAS, or our side angle side congruence. So you can see the pattern, the order it goes in. It goes in that exact SAS, side, angle, side, does not skip a beat. It goes side, angle, side. So that's where we mark those S's and A's. You've got side, angle, side. So you can see it just goes all in order. It doesn't skip a side, it doesn't skip an angle. It just rounds that corner. That's your SAS. So examples down here, same thing we did earlier. Let's take a look and see what we have here. We've got segment BC right here is congruent to segment YZ. Okay, so we have a side. We have also see here, we've got another side. Segment AC is congruent to segment XZ. Now that angle we have to make sure is included or between the two sides. Well here, angle C, I can see here that we're going from side to angle to side. We're just rounding that corner. Now the other one has to follow the same rule. Here we're going side, angle, side. So we're just rounding that corner. So because we get the side, angle, side in that order, around that corner, yes, we do have congruent triangles. We take a look at the next one. We have segment AB is congruent to segment RS. I also see here that segment AC, 2 tick marks, is congruent to segment QR. And let's take a look at that angle. Angle A is congruent to angle R. Do both of them go around the corner, side angle side, side angle side? Yep, they both round the corner without skipping a beat. So yes, these will be congruent as well. The last one here, we see that here that segment HK has 2 tick marks and is congruent to segment LJ. Okay, good enough. We have here that, okay, I've got angle K is congruent to angle J. So we do have a side and an angle. But in order for it to be side angle side, we need to round the corner and see that the thirds that we do have a second side congruent. And this is where I talked about in the last one, or on the other page, we need to be able to see on our own these shared sides. And we have a shared side right here. Segment JK will be congruent to segment KJ. And you'll learn later why I switched those letters around, okay? But these two are going to be, these sides, the shared sides, is going to be considered a 2 congruent sides. So here we have side, angle, side, wrap around the corner. And for the other triangle over here, we've got side, angle, side. So yes, we do have congruent triangles on this one. In example 4, we're going to have to talk about something else you're going to have to look for and notice on your own in order to figure out if triangles are congruent. Like the shared sides, we have to look at something else here. Okay? In this diagram, I am seeing here that segment VX right here is congruent to segment VY. Okay, so I've got a side. I'm seeing that segment VW, got 2 tick marks, is congruent to segment VZ, 2 tick marks. Okay, I've got the 2 sides, but I don't have a third side, and I don't see any angles marked congruent. So this is another thing that you're going to have to see all on your own and notice. Way back in like unit, I want to say 2B, I think it was, we talked about vertical angles. You are going to have to see these vertical angles all on your own, and you're going to have to mark them. So just like we have to look for shared sides, we're going to write in here, have to look for vertical angles. Okay, very, very important. We have to look for those. The shared sides and the vertical angles. You have to notice on your own. So now we can take a look and say, okay, here I'm just going to look at one triangle, and I'm going to see that I go side, angle, side. But I need to make sure the other one goes side, angle, side also, because sometimes they'll throw it to you, they'll say side, angle, and then this side over here. They'll mark a different angle congruent. So you do have to make sure that both of them do follow. You've got a side, we've got an angle, and we've got a side. So because both, and that's where sometimes I'll go, you know what, I'm going to mark the S's and A's on both. So here's my side, angle, side on this triangle. I go over here, and it did follow SAS. Here I'm seeing SAS, and it follows the exact same pattern. Wrap around that corner, side, angle, side. Wrap around the corner just like that. Okay, so a couple things to make sure that you're looking out for when looking at angles and sides, and the next lesson will cover the next 2 congruencies.